Hey guys, today I am going to be studying for my midterm exams. If it's also your midterm or final exam period, you shouldn't be watching this video, you should be studying, so click away. I actually made a 1-hour study session where I don't talk at all and I study, and so go click on that video so that we can actually study together. But for this video, I just want to talk about some of the methods I use for studying and share some study tips. So if you just want to listen to me talk about how I study, then feel free to stay. So let's make a to-do list for today. I'm going to go over my class notes and go over reading materials. I think I'll start with my reading materials. Okay, so study tip number 1. Sometimes it's hard to read actively. Sometimes it's really easy to just read the words without really thinking what they mean, and usually that's kind of a waste of time. So active reading is something that you want to do, not passive reading. And especially when it comes to studying, reading can be used in different ways. Sometimes it could just be a source to help you understand the material, or sometimes there are information in the text that you have to memorize, like remember. If there is information in the text that you are reading that you have to remember or memorize, then it is very important that you read actively, because just because you go over the reading materials doesn't guarantee that you're going to remember everything that you read. And I actually had a lot of problems with this before. When I was reading, I wasn't really reading the information, I was just reading the words. So if I took a reading quiz, then I wouldn't be able to remember or retrieve from my brain the information that was in the reading material, even if I had read it. So I think that's why, you know, sometimes there's this student in your class where like they say, oh, I didn't study at all, and then like, oh, I only read the reading materials once last night. And then there's this other student that like studied really hard and like read the reading materials so many times, but then when you see the results, it doesn't, like, just because you read the reading materials more doesn't guarantee you with a higher grade. And I think sometimes it's how you read that's important, not how many times you read it. And we all have different study styles. So for me to discover how to actively read efficiently took several years. I think the most idealistic way of reading would be reading the same text at least twice, or if possible 3 times. The first time I just like to read it without any pressure, just skipping through even if there are some things that I do not understand, and just try to focus on finishing reading everything. So that's my number 1 goal my first time reading it, finish the reading material. And then the second time I would try to make an outline. So it's basically just taking notes. When I'm reading, I try to highlight the important things, and if there are certain keywords that I need to remember, I would definitely write that down. Sometimes I don't have time to go over the reading materials again, and if I just look at the notes, then I know where it is. So if I want to find something in the reading material, I just have to look at the notes and see, oh, this keyword appears in this context in the reading material. So it helps me remember it better. A lot of the times, even reading the same text twice can be difficult. If I planned wisely enough for that exam and am lucky enough to have a third time to read the material, then be a bit more active and try to look at the notes first and think of what was written in the text. So I would look at the outline that I wrote, and then I would think, oh, what was the example that was given in the reading material in order to explain this? Or what was the author's explanation for this term? And if I can't remember it, I would then go back to the text and read it. Even if I'm sure with an answer, I would also go back to check if I'm correct. And I think that helps me most. When I finish those 3 steps, I think that's when I am able to be more confident when I take an exam, and usually gives me the best results. The tips that I just gave you about reading is mainly when you're trying to read a non-fictional, informational text. But I also take literature courses, and I am required to do readings of stories. And in those cases, it's when I'm very engaged with the story and very interested, then it's not really much of a problem because it's just like reading a book. But sometimes if I don't really find the book my type of literature, I find it really hard to continue. So in those cases, I try to Google audio files, like audiobooks of the books, and listen to them while I'm reading. So there's like 3 learning styles: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. I think I'm more of the kinesthetic style, but if I had to put them in order, it would be number 1 kinesthetic, 2 auditory, 3 visual. So if I'm not engaged into a story, then I can't really focus. So I try to add in the auditory part and look for audiobooks online so it kind of feels like someone's reading the story to me, which makes it a bit more interesting and I can focus better. And now, taking notes. So, some people find it easier to take notes by typing onto laptops. Some like to physically write them. For me, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I feel like typing, sometimes I feel like writing things down. And I do think that it is better for me when I have something physical in front of me. And although I try to study paperless, sometimes I use paper to help me remember a bit more efficiently. And I think the most important thing is just efficiency and what works best for you. Even within this midterm exam, for some courses, I'm gonna use my notes that is only in my laptop, while for some of the classes I'm only going to rely on the notes that I physically wrote on paper with a pen. And there are pros and cons for both. Especially during class when you're taking notes through a laptop, I think it's faster, but I find myself a little more easily distracted because there's internet access to the laptop. So I did once trying to turn off the Wi-Fi when I was during classes, but that also didn't work because sometimes I wanted to search things on the internet if there were words that I didn't understand. But anyways, I know it's very easy to get distracted also because in a lot of cases we have messenger apps that are downloaded onto our laptop, so it's really easy to chat with your friends when you're in class. So sometimes I try to write it with a pen. But there are lectures with heavy materials that's really hard to keep up just by using a pen. So just do what works for you the best. So I have some printed out reading materials that I just want to add some notes to and go over through some of the notes that I added during class. And that is going to help me with the midterm studying.